I can remember the teacher in kindergarten setting up a big easel with newsprint on it and giving us big pots of tempera paint to work with. And I did a painting of my grandfather in Osage City who farmed a team and horses.
In school, grade school even, I had two things going for me. Neither one was to be a jock. One of them I could run fast, and I realized early that the girls didn't care if you could run fast in track. They didn't come out to watch that. And the second was I could draw.
Did a painting of horse-drawn wagons and stuff, and for some reason I got a lot of praise from the teacher, and it kind of set off a light bulb in my head that, you know, I could do this.
So it was mainly wanted to be an artist, but also the fact that I could impress girls early by drawing them pictures or doing them some kind of primitive picture themselves. I decided that I wanted to be an artist.
I enrolled in art class and got a degree in art from Emporia State University, and it never really occurred to me at that time that I could make a living as an artist. It was just something that, okay, I'm going to art school, I'll play art, and then I'll have to get a job in the real world.
I did go to college to become an illustrator. There's many paths on the way to become an artist, and I think I took them all. I was an illustrator. I went back, got the teaching degree. I taught. I did little welded jewelry, going to off and on to these little art fairs, which I hated. My God, I tried it all, but always trying to do the art field.
I went to work for a travel company here in Lawrence, Mop and Tour, doing their marketing and promotion and that sort of stuff. And I think it was in like 1984, 1985, I decided that I'm not getting any younger. I was getting close to 30 years old, and that if I was really going to be an artist, now is the time to fish or cut bait.
By the time that I got to sculpture, when I was in college, I usually almost always would get into the show with a piece of sculpture before I would a painting. Ended up apprenticing with a man, Dennis Anderson. He needed help. I went down and worked for him. He was doing monumental sculptures for zoos.
And so with the blessing of my wife, Phyllis, I moved to New York City for the summer and studied at the Art Students League, took classes. When I came back to Kansas, I started painting watercolors. There was no room in the house to work, and so I set up a table outside in the backyard to do big watercolors. And once I had a series of watercolors, I drove up to Kansas City and went to the Donald Batman Gallery and showed him my work and asked him if I could have a show, and he offered me a show right on the spot.
I never knew I would get into public art. However, I always seemed to have a feel for the figure. Dennis did public art. Like I said, when I came out of his studio, I hoped I would get some large commissions.
Jim Brothers and I first met in 1966. I was a senior in high school at Emporia High, and Jim was the new teacher, and he was young and energetic or whatever, and for some reason we just kind of immediately bonded.
It was real obvious right off the bat that he was an extremely talented and special person.
Well, I was really impressed that Jim was actually working as a teacher. He started a wood sculpture where he'd glue all these pieces of wood together and then carve them down and glue more pieces on and carve them down. And I think you still have that piece, right? Now you're working on a big one for the show.
Yeah, I had a little one before that one. Mm-hmm. That one piece that I was doing in that classroom's long gone. But if I look at those pictures of you then, you look awfully...
well, I was 17 years old.
But before the year was out, Louis turned 18, which meant that we would go down to the Centaur's Den, which was a bar, you can't get away with it today, and have our lunch and a beer and talk art.
I think that trip that Jim and I did to Europe in 1969 had a real influence because I was actually just able to see the paintings in the real. You can see stuff on the internet, you can see stuff on your computer screen, you can look at books, but to actually go to the chapel where the Caravaggio paintings are, or to actually go to the Sistine Chapel and see that, or see the Michelangelo David in its spot there in Florence, there's no substitute for that. on a whim one day, I went into this travel agency and I said, what would it take for a kid like me to go to Europe? Because he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to see all this stuff in Europe that I've been studying in art history class. And he says, well, what you need to do is you need to rent a car, and we've got a package deal where it includes the airfare and the car. And what you need to do is find a friend to split the cost with. So immediately, Jim popped into my head.
We went to the Sistine Chapel and had heard that the best way to see that is on your back. So in the middle of everything, we just lay down on our back, and I think we still had our wine. We were sharing our wine bag back and forth. Didn't we get asked to leave?
Oh yeah, we got thrown out.
I thought so.
We got thrown out of the Sistine Chapel. So we went to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. We went to the Louvre in Paris. We went to Florence.
We saw the Night Watch.
Night Watch,
which
Rembrandt's,
is spectacular.
and the Vermeers.
And this is the first time for us. When I came back, I was almost depressed. We'd seen so much. It was so wonderful, thinking we could never match this. But as you can tell from Louis' paintings and my sculptures to some extent, I finally broke out of this depression, if you want to call it depression, and said, we have our own culture here to document. We started from the 60s to 60-something. We're bringing in pieces of work that we've done doing all these years. And I'm looking back at where I was and trying to redo it in maybe the style I would today. I don't know whether it's going to be better or worse. It is different. We always change.
I wanted to have kind of a retrospective of work because I've lived in Lawrence since 1976, and I had the idea to share the show with Jim, because Jim, of course, is a sculptor and I'm a painter, and so he can put all these pieces out in the gallery that people can back up into when they're trying to look at my paintings. So hopefully he won't clog the gallery with too many of these pieces. But
I'm doing some things that most people, I'm known for my traditional bronzes, my big public art pieces, but I have experimented with it all, and I'm doing some things purposely for the show that most people won't recognize as a Jim Brothers by the style.
I hope to show a progression of work from when I started painting full-time, like in the mid-'80s, doing watercolors. I eventually switched from watercolor to acrylics, and then from acrylics I switched to oils.
This is kind of a history of Louis and I in the artwork and together. And so that this show will show a change all the way along. I hope we've gotten better. I do know we've gotten different.
When it comes down to it, it's just really you and the canvas, or it's just you and the sculpture.
Now the fact I've been picked all over, from doing Omar Bradley to doing the Soldiers of D-Day to doing the homage, doing public art pieces all over the country that honors the soldier. I feel my life very blessed. Somewhat I'm leaving a legacy. Obviously I hope there's more to do.
I still have lots of paintings in my head that I want to get out. It's only in the past 10 years that I feel like that I've mastered oil painting, that I can actually translate what's in my head to the canvas. And I just never lack for ideas. There's always something going on.
I don't want to die tomorrow, but I feel if I did, I've left something behind, and it's going to be fairly permanent for years.
My hope is that 100 years from now, or 500 years from now, or whatever, when people look at my paintings, they see that and they say, well, that's what Kansas looked like in the 80s, or that's what Kansas looked like in the 1990s. And so, to me, it's just a little slice of history. It's a little slice of basically what Kansas was.
There was no way I could have made it if it hadn't been this incredible drive. There's been years that I was a social worker, I was other things, that I almost tried to give it up. But it's always there, and you finally give up fighting it and you go back. You know that even if you make almost no money, that's what you're going to do. Same thing with talent. You don't know what talent is. You have no idea what it is. And people tell you you've got it, and you hope it's still there when you wake up the next day. Were we rolling all that time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, not while I was gone.
good. think I was saying some BS.